Hello for take 50, and that's not an exaggeration, it really is take 50. I've been asked several times to do a tutorial on my bead dangles, and I've been putting it off because the focusing is a nightmare, and I know I've got to get really close up and my fingers look awful because I don't manicure, but I have no thumbnails at the moment, so this is the best time to do it. So the things you will need, obviously beads. I don't have a great selection. Most of my nicer beads are in a different pot that come from vintage jewellery that I take apart. This is a selection that mainly comes from Hobbycraft. You will also need, I don't have a massive selection of these either, some pins. And you can get pins with a little hole, little ring at the bottom, which I really like. I think they're pretty. And you can get pins with a flat bottom. They have a name. I don't know what they are. But I do know these are jump rings. You will need jump rings. Mine don't always match. I'm good with that. This is also a box of jump rings. So, this comes with a disclaimer. I am not a jewellery maker. I use the same technique to make all of my dangles because it's a technique that works for me. I am going to attempt to sit down because my breathing's not exactly great, and I'm a bit close to the camera, so it's going to sound like I'm really heavy breathing. I have this book so I know my work area. I have this pair of pliers. Not quite sure what they're called, but they're flat on the inside. I have a pair of round nose pliers, and I have a pair of cutting pliers. None of these are top quality, and they work perfectly well. They're not the most expensive you can buy. So those are the three tools that I use. In theory, you don't need this if you have a decent pair of these because they do have a cutter. Mine doesn't work very well because I've cut all sorts of random things with those, so they don't really cut anymore. So the first thing you need to do is take your pin, and a lot of these have come in the post. They're not exactly straight, but that doesn't matter. Once you've got your beads on, you can straighten it, and once you do your loop at the top, it all kind of works, so that's all right. Now once you've got this, you need to decide what bead you're going to use, whether you're going to use a colour theme, whether you're going to have spaces in the middle, whether you are going to use things like bead caps, like these. So you can just pull out your little pieces before you start making your dangle, but more often than not I'll slide it all off and start again because I'm not happy with what I've got. So, like I said, nothing that I've got matches, but I always like it, as you know. So, I'll do one nice and straightforward one first of all. So, I have some blue beads, some small blue beads, and would you believe I pulled out three and not one of them, none of them are the same colour. So, we've got some medium blue, a very light blue, and two dark blues. So I'm going to go for a medium blue, and I'm going to slot that on the end of my pin. Then I'm going to take a larger dark blue bead, and I'm going for these because I know they're going to work together and I'm not going to be indecisive on camera. So we now have 3 beads. I hope you can see that. So obviously our pin is way too big. At this point, we do not need a pin this big. So let me just move these because I'm not sure if they're going to mess the focus up. Everything seems to be messing the focus up during this. Okay, so we've got our 3 beads, and black probably isn't the best colour to see those beads on. Now I use my thumb as a rule. I put my thumb on, I take my cutting pliers, and I just hold it, and that looks about right to me. I have no idea how long that is, but it's about the width of my thumb. Now I pinch that top bit between my 2 fingers because it will fly quite a distance when you pinch this. and I pinch. Get rid of the dangerous bit, and you can now see we have a much shorter pin. Now this is the technique I use. I take my round nose pliers and I twist my hand, and I take the very end of the pin and I twist it away from me. I'm going to let go now, which just means it's probably going to go horribly wrong, to make a little loop. I hope you can see. So let's try and do this again. I normally wouldn't let go. I keep this held in my hand, and I twist and I twist, and I twist away from myself. I'm not sure if that is the way to do it, but it's the way I do it. And I don't know if you can see, I hope you can, there are now 2 little loops round my pliers. Now at this point I'll give it a bit of a wiggle and try and get that loop in the centre. If it's not, then I'll give it another wiggle until I'm happy with that. Okay. If these 2 loops are a little bit far apart, I just take my pliers and pinch. And I now have my bead dangle. I'm not quite happy with how straight that is. Now obviously when you're doing this you would be wiggling around until you're happy with it, which is what I do when I make mine. Okay, let me just stand to make sure. Okay, right, so we have our first bead dangle. Now what we need to do is, let me just, that's not pinched under quite enough. You need to make sure you haven't got any sharp bits hanging off. So what I would do is just make sure I'm pinching with my pliers to make sure all of those bits are tucked in, which they now are. If they're not and you've got too much, you can always pinch it with the cutting pliers. So I now need a jump ring. Now I work with my flat nose pliers on the right and my round nose pliers on the left. If you've got 2 pairs of flat pliers, that would be favourite, because honestly the round nose pliers are a little bit fiddly. So I have the gap at the top, and I pick up my jump ring and I make sure I am firmly holding that with the flat nose pliers with the gap at the top. Now I'm going to twist it this way so you can see. If you pull this jump ring apart, you're going to damage the integrity of the metal, and it's much more difficult to get it back into position when you try and close your jump ring. So I take my round nose pliers and hold, and I twist. So I'm twisting it away from themselves, not pulling it apart. Hook on that dangle, and then I'm going to do the same in reverse. I'm going to close it. Now what you can do, if it isn't closed properly, you can just open and close and wiggle, obviously still moving in that same direction until that is nicely closed. So now we have our first dangle. I hope you can see that, and I hope that was clear and my hands weren't in the way. And we'll do one more just to try and make sure we get this right. I'm going to take, let's go silver. Have I got any silver? Let's see what I've got. Some of these bead caps come off old jewellery, so, ooh, I hope my head wasn't in the shot then. I'm just fine. I've got 2 that match. I've got a silver jump ring. Now I'm going to use, there we go, 2 of these tiny little ends. Huh, would you believe? Didn't get one clear one then. Now I've got 1 clear one and 50 pink and purple. This is the trouble when you only have, I don't have massive boxes, so I've got several colours in the same container hole. What container hole is that thing? I don't know. Okay, so this time we're going to use some end caps. So again, I'm going to use a simple layer. I'm going to pop on my clear bead, then I'm going to pop on one of these little silver spacer beads, apparently they're called. And then I'm going to pop on my end cap. Now I'm not 100% sure this end cap is going to fit the bead that I'm going to choose, so let's try this turquoisey blue. Yep, that fits okay. So I'm now going to do the symmetrical version, I suppose, the symmetry. I'm going to get it symmetrical. I'm going to make it symmetrical. I don't know. Grammar. There we go. So this one's quite a big one. Oh, that's very pretty actually. Quite like that. So again, I'm going to use my thumb. I'm going to pop the cutters on, and this is just something you'll kind of get to know. I know that's a bit big. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. I would say that's about 1.5 centimetres. There's not as much to hold on to this time, but this bit is even more deadly if it goes flying off, especially if there's someone in the room. So I'm going to hold that with my fingers and snip. Take my pliers, twist my hand, pinch and make a loop, pinch and twist, pinch and twist. I've got a little bit sticking out there, so I'm going to pinch that and twist. Okay, so wiggle until I'm happy that I have that. I'm hoping that me bringing it up too high wasn't out of focus. So that's what I do, and you can see I've got 2 loops on there. Take the round nose pliers out. You can see I've got quite a big bit sticking out here. So what I would do is I'll try and twist again from the other direction. If I've still got a bit sticking out, I mean, it's fiddly, it is fiddly, and it does take practice. I will keep manipulating that. If I still have a bit sticking out, I would take my clippers and I will snip. That went there, luckily. And now I don't have a nasty sharp bit sticking out on my bead dangle. And again, I will just keep manipulating that until I'm happy that the loop is reasonably central. If it's not perfect, it doesn't matter, because you're putting this onto a paper clip that's going to hang out of a journal. Well, that's what I use them for, you might not. So that's that one. And obviously we need a silver jump ring. We don't need a silver jump ring, that's a lie. I don't always use the same colour. These are a little bit smaller, but again, I will line it up so the join is at the top. I will move my round nose pliers into position. Let's get rid of those. I mean, you'd have your head a lot closer because you can really want to see what you're doing. I'm a bit further away than I would normally be working. Pinch and twist it away from each other. Do not pull it away, twist it. So from the side it kind of would still look like a circle. Pop on your bead. This is the point that you would add this to a chain if you wanted to add it to a chain dangle. Hold the end and twist it back together. And make sure that's closed fully. And there is our second bead dangle. So we have two dangles. I really hope that's helped. I really hope that's what you're looking for, those of you that have been asking me to do this tutorial. Unless you are some kind of genius, I'm not. It does take practice. It took, I mean, I probably threw away a whole packet of these kind of, these things. And I still throw some away. If I'm not happy with it, if I've got too much sticking out, I will chuck it and start again. But that's how I make my little dangles. And obviously you can be as creative as you like. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope I was in focus, and I will see you soon.